So in this video we'll look at baking animation from the rig onto the joints ready for export. So in a lot of games productions there's no need to export the full rig into the game, strip it down as much as you possibly can, and in this sense the rig, the controls are really only there for the animator. And so once you've finished animating, you can bake that animation onto the joints, which in turn drive the skinned geometry. So this is the file which we used in class, which is a skinned cylinder, literally as though it's simulating an arm. You've got the joints inside, which the geometry is skinned to. We've got the IK setup, and literally we've got a control which is driving that IK. So if we look at the outliner, you can see we've got the shoulder, elbow and hand joint. We've got the control, and the child of that is the IK handle. So the control literally guides the IK, and then we've got the geometry. Okay, so just to test it, you can select the control and literally kind of move it up and down, and you get that as though it's an arm. You can see the skinned data there. Okay, so very simply we'll put some animation onto the arm. So I'm just going to key it start and end at the same place, and then roughly 12 I'm just going to lift it up maybe a little bit forward and key that. So if I play the animation, you can see it's just kind of flexing the arm. Okay, so now that we've done that, we want to bake the animation onto those joints. So first of all, what we need to do is select the joints that we want to bake the keys onto. Just be aware, if you just select the top joint, visually it looks like it's selected all the joints underneath it, but it hasn't, so just be aware of that. If you look in the outliner, you can see that just the shoulder is highlighted blue, which is selected. So be very careful. Generally when I'm selecting joints, always select the children first, and then that way you're guaranteed that everything is included. So as you can see, I've just worked my way up the hierarchy in selection, and as you can see in the outliner, they're all blue. And again, another alternative method is to literally select the hand in the outliner and command, if you're on a Mac, select the rest. Okay, so you can use your outliner for selection. Okay, so time to bake. The bake command is under Edit Keys, and we want Bake Simulation. So this throws up the dialog box where literally the hierarchy that we want to bake is the selected one. I much prefer to do it selected, so you're in control of where you want the keys on which joints to go on. So we've selected the joint chain, so that's where we're going to bake the keys. In terms of channels, you can bake all keyable, which literally will bake in your channel box everything that you can put a key on, which is fine in itself. Personally, I just prefer to be a little bit more in control of what you want to, what channels you want to bake keys. So I know that potentially it might just be translations and rotations, so I always prefer from channel box and then literally highlight the channels that you want to select and bake the keys on. Okay. Time range is the time slider, so we'll bake the keys that are included in the time slider. That seems to make sense. And we don't want a new layer, we'll keep it on the base animation. So generally everything else is kept default. Okay. The only other item that you potentially need to change is the sample by. Sample by 1 means that it will bake every key. You could sample by 10, where it puts a key down on every 10 frames. So obviously you lose the detail in your animation, but sometimes you might want to bake every 10 frames or every 2 frames. You know, it all depends. For the moment, we'll just keep it at 1. So literally bake, and it will run through the timeline. And as you can see now, it's got a key on every frame, so everything is red. Okay, so if I select each joint, you will see that there's a key baked on every frame. Okay, the process of baking the keys means that the IK is totally no longer active. Okay, baking keys overrides constraints, IK controls. So literally it's the sort of last thing that you do before export. You've baked the keys, so no longer will anything affect those joints. Okay, you've lost that control. So the IK and the control is now kind of pointless. We don't need it. So literally you can go in and delete it. Your rigs will be a little more complex than this, so rather than go in the highest level and delete all and hope for the best, literally go in and start deleting things like IK handles, and then go in and start deleting controls, just so that you're not being too destructive. And as you can see, I've got the animation. It's baked to the joint, so the scene's got a lot more simplified, easier to manage. So literally all I've got is the geometry, the joints, which the geometry is skinned to, and the animation is baked down right on at the joint level. And that's literally baking animation onto joints, and it's now